Good morning, G-Town. I guess if there was a title to the message, it would be Extenuating Circumstances. Exceptional, unforeseen, and disruptive events that are beyond a person's control and can impact their performance. But in this case, we'll say it can impact your life, can impact your future. 2 Samuel, the 4th chapter, the 4th verse. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. And he was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel. They were at war. And his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. We've all experienced that in the course of life, there was someone who had some responsibility, who we might have trusted as a caretaker, when we did not have yet the wits about us, or the senses, or the experience, or the wisdom to take care of ourselves. Someone was in charge of us, and in the process, they dropped us. You know, sometimes in life, when it comes to the things that we have lost, the things that have slipped, the things that have dropped, it's the lost opportunity. What could have been if this had not happened to me? But how many of you know that God knows your situation? He knows the circumstances surrounding your situation and still has a plan for your life. Just because there's been some damage, just because there's been some default, just because there's been some dysfunction. Come on, somebody. Just because you have, in some way, your future has been defined by someone else's decision, doesn't mean that God has not still purposed you for something great in Him. Some of this message is about trauma-informed responses. So if you're not careful, you won't respond in the way that you could, you would, and you should, but you'll respond based on what had happened to you. You'll respond based on your traumatic experience in life. Who told you you were less than? Who told you were undressed of your glory? Who told you that you were without? Where did you get that from? Think about it. Sometimes we're responding not to what's in front of us, but reacting to the trauma that affected us. Trauma-informed responses. This is the thing about trauma. You will say things that is protective, but it doesn't lend itself to God's purpose. It helps you avoid and not be so vulnerable, but then it denies you access. All of us, in some way, have been dropped, right? But we gotta be careful, because if you're not careful, you begin to craft a carefully constructed narrative about why you can't do what God has called you to do. We're going to move to the New Testament. John 5th chapter, starting with the first verse. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season in the pool and troubled water. And whosoever, somebody say whosoever, then first, after the troubling of the water, stepped in, was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And a certain man was there which had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lie, knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he said unto him, will you be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me in the pool. But while I am coming, another stepping down before me. Jesus said unto him, Rise, take up thy bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was the Sabbath. What's his story? He's been coming to church. He's been coming, but his carefully crafted narrative is that when I come to church, I don't have anybody, no deacon, no usher, no minister, nobody to get me to the altar. We've got to be careful. So listen to me, that we are not exchanging God's glory for our story. Every one of us around that little thing we don't want to expose and be vulnerable over, we've created a story around it so that no one will see it. And it's comforting enough to keep us in the position that we're in. But it's not moving you forward. It's not moving you into destiny. It's not moving you into healing. It's not moving you into deliverance. Come on, somebody. As soon as you get rid of his story, you will experience God's glory. Let's go to Luke, the 10th chapter, starting the 38th verse. Now it came to pass, as they went, that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered, she was burdened about much serving, and came to Jesus and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister had left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary has chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her. A lot of times when we are in trauma, we will distribute shame and blame. And if you're not careful, you begin to steal victories. You'll begin to extract from the people around you and the environment around you what you need to fill the void within you. There are people who position themselves so they are not caretakers, they are takers. They have a void on the inside that they need to fill. And it looks like success, but is it God's best? And Jesus says one thing is needed. You need Jesus. You need that relationship. Huh? So I got some empty spaces in my heart, in my experience, in my life. The only one who can fill that space for you is Jesus. I know you tried a lot of other stuff, and he's allowed you to do that because he wants you to realize that those things can never fit the space in your heart that I am intended to. Back to 2 Samuel, the 9th chapter, starting with the first verse, and David said, Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? There was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba, and when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is here. Is he? And the king said, Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of God unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan had yet a son, which is lame on his feet. And the king said unto him, Where is he? And Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Samuel, in Lodabar. And King David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Samuel, from Lodabar. Now Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was coming to David, fell on his face, and did reverence. And David said, Mephibosheth. He answered, Behold, thy servant. And David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake. I will restore unto all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. The house of David is a place of covering and covenant, right? Come on in to a place of covering and covenant so that all of your needs might be met by the house. The devil's temptation and trick sometimes is to get you out from under a covenant. Out from under a covenant. I'm trying to say to you that God has covenanted with you, and he has covered you so that whatever you need through Christ Jesus, our covenant one, will meet every need that you have in your heart, your mind, and even though you have experienced what you have experienced. God still intends to bless you. He knows who you are. He has covenanted. He has obligated himself to be a blessing to you. Like I said, covenant. God has obligated himself to cause you to go up. He has obligated himself to set a table of fellowship that you can eat from continually. Continually. Come
continually. It won't run out.